I gripped the phone so tight my knuckles turned white, watching as another message from Sarah appeared on the screen. Emma can't even do her homework properly without a desk. Is your precious little cottage worth more than your own niece's education? It was the 17th message since midnight. My finger hovered over the block button when a photo came through, my sister's 3 children crammed into their tiny bedroom, faces deliberately posed in exaggerated frowns. I finally pressed block, then systematically went through every social media account, blocking her there too. The silence that followed felt like the first breath of air after nearly drowning. My hand still trembled as I walked to the large bay window of my new cottage, the home I'd worked for years to afford, the one my family had tried to commandeer for Sarah without even asking me. 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have imagined cutting contact with my entire family. 2 weeks ago, I couldn't have imagined the level of entitlement that had been festering beneath the surface of our relationships my entire life. I sank into the window seat, watching the early morning light filter through the maple trees that dotted my front yard. My yard. My trees. My house. For the first time in 30 years, something was truly mine. I'm Lucy, and this is how I finally escaped the role of family sacrifice. Growing up as the younger of 2 sisters taught me early that I was an afterthought in my parents' eyes. Sarah was always the golden child, pretty, social, the one who could do no wrong. I can still see my mother's face on Christmas morning 1999, beaming as Sarah unwrapped her expensive American Girl doll while I received the knockoff version from the discount store. They look exactly the same, Mom had insisted when she caught my disappointed expression. But they didn't. Nothing in our lives was ever the same. For Sarah's 16th birthday, she received a brand new Volkswagen Beetle with a giant red bow on top. I got Dad's old Honda with 150,000 miles and a tendency to break down on cold mornings. My father had grown up with 5 siblings in a cramped apartment where nothing was ever truly his. You need to learn to share, he'd say whenever I protested the inequality, his voice tight with a childhood pain he never fully addressed. Your sister needs more support than you do. What he meant was, Sarah had learned to need things loudly, dramatically, while I had learned to need things quietly, if at all. I began saving money the day I got my first job at 16, working after school at the local grocery store. Sarah was in college by then, our parents covering every expense at her dream school while I stayed up late applying for every scholarship I could find. My mother had grown up wealthy until her family lost everything when she was 12. The financial insecurity shaped her in ways I'd only understand years later, her desperate clinging to status symbols, her need to keep up appearances, her tendency to indulge Sarah who reminded her of herself before the fall. Lucy doesn't mind, she'd say whenever resources were directed to Sarah instead of split between us. And for the longest time, I didn't, or at least, I pretended not to. I threw myself into my studies, graduated top of my class, and secured a position as an investment analyst. I was good at what I did, careful, methodical, always thinking long-term. My colleagues teased me about being too frugal, but I had a plan. For 5 years, I lived in a discounted apartment owned by my best friend's parents, saving religiously toward my dream, a small country house where I could work remotely and finally have something that was entirely mine. When the time came to start looking seriously at properties, I felt a strange mixture of excitement and anxiety. I'd spent my entire life being overlooked. Would I be overlooked by real estate agents too? But Amanda Chan, the realtor I found through positive online reviews, actually listened to what I wanted. I want something small and cozy, I explained to her. A country house, but not too far from the city. Good internet connection is a must since I work from home most days. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables. Her eyes lit up when I told her my budget. I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday. Want to take a look this weekend? The moment Amanda's car turned onto the gravel driveway, I felt something click inside me. The house was perfect, a charming 2-bedroom cottage with white siding and dark green shutters, a wraparound porch with rocking chairs, mature maple trees providing shade. Inside, sunlight streamed through large windows into an open-plan living area. The kitchen was small but updated with butcher block countertops. A wood-burning fireplace dominated one wall of the living room. Upstairs were 2 modestly sized bedrooms and a full bathroom with a clawfoot tub. But it was the sunroom at the back of the house that sealed the deal, windows on 3 sides looking out over a well-tended garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. I put in an offer immediately. The next week was a whirlwind of paperwork, mortgage applications, and negotiations. Every night, I fell asleep looking at photos of my future home, imagining where I'd put my furniture, planning what I'd plant in the garden. When everything was signed and official, I felt like I was walking on air. I couldn't wait to share my news with my family. The following Saturday, I drove to my parents' suburban house for dinner, practically buzzing with excitement. Sarah and Tom were already there with their 3 children, Emma 8, Lucas 5, and little Joey 2. We settled in for dinner, and Mom served her traditional pot roast. The usual complaints and conversations floated around the table: Tom's latest workplace drama, Sarah's struggles with the kids' school schedules, Dad's commentary on the economy. Then Mom turned to me with a smile that made my stomach clench. "Oh, Lucy, I'm so glad you're here. I was just talking to Barbara next door. She's selling her house. You remember Barbara's house? She's willing to give us, I mean you, a good price. You should really consider." Actually, I interrupted, unable to contain myself any longer. "I've already bought a house." The clatter of cutlery against plates came to an abrupt halt. Emma's cartwheel in the background stopped mid-turn. The silence was absolute. I took a deep breath and started describing my new home, my voice filled with enthusiasm despite the tension around the table. "It's this beautiful cottage about 40 minutes outside the city. 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds, and are you out of your mind?" Dad's fist came down on the table, making the plates jump. I'd never seen him this angry before. Joey started crying at the sudden noise. What?" I stammered, completely thrown by their reaction. "How dare you?" Mom's face had turned an alarming shade of red. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first? After everything, we showed you all those perfect family homes we found." I felt like I'd suddenly stepped into some bizarre alternate reality. Why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money? Because we had it all planned out. Mom was practically screaming now. Barbara's house would have been perfect, right here in the neighborhood. Plenty of room for everyone. Room for everyone? I repeated slowly, feeling increasingly confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged looks while Sarah sat there with an eerily calm expression on her face. Tom was suddenly very interested in his plate. "Actually, Lucy," Mom said in a tone that made my blood run cold, "the plan was for Sarah, Tom, and the kids to live there with you." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. It didn't come. "I'm sorry, what?" I managed to choke out. Sarah nodded as if this was the most natural thing in the world. "We're so cramped in that apartment, Lucy. It's really hard on the kids. Your house would have given us all the space we need." She smiled like she was discussing borrowing a sweater. "And since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving some money." The revelation hit me with the force of a physical blow. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity the pattern that had defined my entire life. Sarah always took. I always gave. It wasn't just that our parents favored her, they had systematically trained us both for these roles since childhood. Behind Sarah's entitlement was a lifetime of being told she deserved more. Behind my shock was a lifetime of being told I should expect less. Tom fidgeted uncomfortably with his napkin. I remembered how quickly he'd married Sarah after college, how he'd gone along with every financial decision she made without question. His own parents had divorced messily over money when he was young. Now he avoided financial discussions entirely, letting Sarah handle everything while he retreated into complaints about his boss and colleagues. "You all just assumed I would buy a house for Sarah's family to live in?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow yet somehow stronger than before. "Well, of course," Mom threw up her hands. "That's what family does. We help each other." "Help each other?" I repeated incredulously. "This isn't helping. This is expecting me to provide housing for 5 people without even asking me." "You're being selfish," Sarah said, her calm facade cracking slightly. "You know how hard it is for us in that tiny apartment. Emma and Lucas have to share a room, and Joey's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to the children." I felt dizzy as the full impact of their expectations hit me. They had all sat there for weeks, planning out my future, deciding how I should spend my money, without ever once considering what I wanted or even thinking they should ask me about it. "You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately," Mom demanded, her voice sharp with authority. "Call your realtor first thing Monday morning. Barbara's house is still available, and it's perfect, right here in the neighborhood, close to all the good schools and kindergartens." "No." I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, fueled by decades of pent-up frustration. The dining room erupted into chaos. Mom jumped up from her chair, waving her arms. Dad's voice boomed over everyone else's. The kids started crying, picking up on the tension in the room. "But we'll be so cramped." Sarah wailed as if she hadn't heard me at all. "Do you know how hard it'll be to get the kids to school from all the way out there? Emma has ballet on Tuesdays, Lucas has soccer on Thursdays." I spun to face my sister, something inside me finally snapping. "You're not going to be cramped anywhere because you're not living in my house. None of you are. Ever. Is that clear enough for you?" The room fell silent. They all stared at me like I'd grown a second head, the entitled shock on their faces almost comical. "Lucy." Mom gasped, clutching her pearls. "How can you be so cruel to your own sister?" I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, their voices rising again behind me. I couldn't listen to another word. I got in my car and drove home in a daze, their screams still ringing in my ears. That night, alone in my apartment, surrounded by half-packed boxes, I realized that my entire life had been building to this moment. The moment I finally said no. The harassment started almost immediately. First came the aggressive pounding on my apartment door as I was packing my kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapping in newspaper slipped from my hands but thankfully landed on a pile of packing paper. "Lucy, open this door right now," my father's voice boomed through the wood. "We know you're in there." I froze, bubble wrap still in hand. More pounding followed. "Go away." I shouted back. "I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that." Dad's fist made the door rattle in its frame. "We raised you better than this." My hands were trembling as I picked up my phone. "If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police. I mean it." I pulled up the keypad on my phone and deliberately pressed 9, making sure they could hear the beep. "I'm dialing right now." "You ungrateful little," Dad's curse was cut off by Mom's sharp intake of breath. "We'll leave," Mom's voice had turned cold as ice, "but this isn't over, Lucy. You're making a terrible mistake." I listened to their footsteps retreating down the hallway, then slid down against the wall, my heart pounding. After that came the relentless messages from Sarah, the calls from extended family members and family friends, all with the same message: I was selfish, heartless, cruel. I should give up my house, my dreams, my independence to solve my sister's problems. None of them seemed to question why Sarah's housing situation was somehow my responsibility. After 2 weeks of constant harassment, I'd had enough. I went to my mobile carrier and changed my number, giving it only to my workplace and a handful of trusted friends who hadn't taken sides in this mess. Moving day was wonderfully quiet. I hired a moving company I'd never used before, making sure there was no way for my family to track the address through familiar local services. The movers were efficient and professional, and by sunset, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibility. That first night in my cottage, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars come out. No traffic noise. No sirens. No family drama. Just peace. I felt something inside me finally relax, a tension I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying for years. Of course, I still occasionally saw their social media posts, Sarah's passive-aggressive status updates about family betrayal and selfish siblings, Mom's thinly veiled posts about ungrateful children and family duty, the comments from relatives and family friends, all taking their side without knowing the full story. But here's the thing, none of it bothered me anymore. Their words couldn't touch me in my new sanctuary. I transformed the second bedroom into a home office, setting up my monitors to face the window where I could watch birds visit the bird feeder I installed. The previous owners' raised garden beds now burst with herbs and vegetables, my first attempt at gardening turning out surprisingly successful. The greenhouse became my weekend project, slowly filling with plants that made the space feel alive and vibrant. My work productivity actually improved without the constant family interruptions. My boss noticed and gave me more responsibility along with a raise. I started taking online courses in investment strategy, expanding my expertise without anyone telling me I was wasting my time or should be focusing on finding a husband instead. Sure, there were moments when I missed the idea of family, not the reality of my family, but the dream of what a supportive family could be. Those moments usually passed quickly when I remembered the peace I'd gained in exchange. I made new friends in the area, other professionals who worked remotely, a local gardening group that met monthly, neighbors who respected boundaries and didn't feel entitled to my space or time. None of them knew my family history, and I preferred it that way. They knew me as I am, not as the person my family tried to force me to be. The funny thing is, I'm probably being more true to my parents' original dreams for their daughters than Sarah is. They raised us to be independent, successful women. They just never expected me to be the one who actually did it. And they certainly never expected me to be independent from them too. Sometimes the best family you can have is yourself, at least until you choose to add to it on your own terms, in your own time, in your own way. And that's more than enough for me.